small happen probably every day in some form. So you don't get upset anymore when things don't go according to plan. You don't get upset and complain or irritated or angry when people don't behave the way they should behave. And that makes it so much easier when you no longer demand that these things should not be the way they are. They shouldn't cancel flights. Weather shouldn't be such a way that they can't fly anymore. The body shouldn't get old. Nobody should have catch an illness. Now, a lot of illnesses are produced, or you're much more prone to have an illness if your mind is very dysfunctional, because that lowers the physical resistance. It affects the body. What the mind does obviously affects the body. Even mainstream medicine is beginning to recognize your mental emotional state affects your physical state. So if your mental emotional state is very dysfunctional, your body's resistance to illness decreases. The likelihood increases that you catch something. There are other causes of illness, so nobody can be totally free and say, I'm never going to be ill. The body is a physical vehicle with a certain lifespan, and as it approaches the later stages of its lifespan, it's just like an old car. Things start to go wrong with it. It's another form, and the older your car gets, the more things need to be replaced. And the time comes when it's just not working anymore. So it will be easier for you to deal with the challenges of life if you actually realize that the challenges are good. They force you to awaken.
Rule number 3 is eliminate negative thoughts.
Most of the time, there is a voice in your head that comments and has opinions and viewpoints and interpretations about what's going on in your life. I call that the voice in the head. For most humans, that is completely involuntary. They don't even know that they have a voice in the head that never stops talking. Most of the time, silently in your head. At other times, it may even shout something out, so it wants to be heard. And so, if you walk in the street, you will find most people look fairly sane. They're not talking to themselves, it seems, because they're not talking out aloud. But if you listened into everybody's head, you would be amazed of how noisy the inside of every human is. It's like these radio stations where the people talk in an excited voice. They go on and on. If you go to a foreign country and you don't know what they're talking about, you might think this must be extremely important. But if you can understand what they're saying, you realize it's completely meaningless. It's just noise. So a significant part of what happens in your mind, the larger part, is actually just superfluous noise. Thinking is a wonderful ability, a wonderful tool. If used rightly, it is an instrument that causes dysfunction and misery for millions on the planet, unhappiness for millions on the planet, if thinking is not used, but if you are used by thought. So when humans say, I think, in most cases, that's actually not true, because they have no control over their thinking. It's a compulsive and involuntary. And they are so identified with these thought processes, they don't even know that they are in the grip of their thought processes because they are so identified, they become their thought processes. So whatever comes into your head, you completely believe in it, and then that's how it is. Whenever you feel unhappiness, this is a generic term, unhappiness in whatever form. Unhappiness can arise as irritation, can arise as anger, can arise as even boredom is a form of unhappiness, sadness, all kinds of states that they don't feel pleasant, it's unhappiness, and usually they are attributed to a life situation, something that's going on in your life. So, for example, waiting at the airline counter, and of course how often things don't go well there. Let's hope they don't drag you out of the plane, but that could happen too. Whenever you feel irritation arising, anger arising, upset in whatever form, ask yourself, is this caused by the situation, or is it caused by what my mind is telling me about the situation? And in 95% of cases, you will find that the mental commentary that argues and complains about something that's going on, but should not be going on, but it is, but shouldn't be. And the gap between what is and what the mind says should be or should not be, that gap is the arising of unhappiness and misery, or as the Buddha called suffering.
Rule number 4 is live in the present.
What you are looking for is something deeper. What every human is looking for is something deeper than the world can give you. The world can only challenge you, give you challenges and adversity so that you awaken. The world cannot, as I said, it cannot make you happy because it's not here to make you happy, but it has another purpose. It is here to make you conscious. That's how it operates. Also, that means whatever arises in the present moment is just right for this moment, for you at this moment. But if you're stuck in the mind, the egoic mind, then you will completely ignore or even continuously dislike the present moment. And that is an amazing way to live. It is dreadful, but millions still live like that without knowing it, unconsciously. They live for the next moment until they're very old. Then they know there's not much time left. Then the past becomes more and more important. The heaviness of the past. Oh. So living for the next moment is, for most people, unconscious and quite normal. They live hoping that at some point they're going to achieve fulfillment.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight our favorite lessons from the video that will inspire you to remember what you learned today and actually apply them. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5 is love yourself.
Many people are uncomfortable with themselves. They dislike who they are. Perhaps they dislike their body, how they look. Perhaps they dislike who they are as a person, don't feel they are good enough, or are self-critical a lot. Many people live with a negative self-image, which of course all consists of certain types of mind activity, and that's not pleasant. And it may be for some of those people, once they realize that they live with a mind pattern that continually criticizes them and says negative things about them, they begin to realize that it's a mind pattern. This self-hatred is a mind pattern, and that it's harmful, it's not pleasant, and they can go beyond it and begin to replace it with more negative thoughts more positive thoughts about themselves. And having positive thoughts about yourself, that kind of thing would perhaps usually be called beginning to love yourself, to feel good about yourself. But it's not easy, that shift from feeling bad about yourself to feeling good about yourself. Sometimes it requires a lot of convincing. I would regard loving yourself as perhaps an intermediate stage in one's awakening. But the essence of the awakened consciousness is that you go beyond having a particular idea in your mind that represents yourself, as a mental self-image that you relate to. Because basically it's ego, a mental self-image of who you think, this is what I am, this is who I am. If you want to learn about not having a mental self-image, watch your dog or your cat. They don't have an opinion about who they are. They just are who they are. So that removes an enormous amount of problems from their lives. Of course, they don't have the mind activity that creates a self-image in their head. They are pre-mind, and therefore their life is far less problematic than human life. You can see how wonderful it is not to have a self-image. You can look at an ugly dog or an ugly cat. They don't have a problem with that. Even an overweight dog or cat, they're okay. No self-image.
Rule number 6 is adapt the conscious states.
Every human acts, speaks in the way that corresponds to their state of consciousness at that moment. Sometimes you encounter humans, it's very common for humans to fluctuate between being relatively more conscious and quite unconscious. So you might meet the same person that you know well, or family member, in 2 or 3 or more different modalities of consciousness, as you might know. And when you're having breakfast in the morning and the family member or your roommate is coming down the stairs, you never know who is coming down the stairs that morning. It could be a very cheerful and lovely person. Isn't it great to be alive? And the next morning, it comes to a completely different entity down the stairs and starts complaining, and why didn't you do this? You should have told me too long ago. I've been thinking about that all night. It's just awful. You always do that, don't you? Who is that? Well, that was the person that was light and cheerful yesterday morning, and who knows who's coming down the next day. So with people who are fairly unconscious, they are subject to enormous fluctuations, and you also to the extent that you could call them virtually certain different personalities emerging at different times. So you're not dealing with one human being. People, and I'm talking about people who have not yet enough presence to bring about a more continuous state of identity. So you have all these people, and then you might talk to one person, and he says, okay, I'm now very clear in my mind what I want, and I promise you those things that I did yesterday, 2 days ago, this will never happen again. I'm really become very clear now. It's all sorted out in my mind. And this person is genuinely believing that he's at a relatively slightly higher state of consciousness. And a few days or weeks pass, and then he or she does exactly the same thing as before, or worse. And then you say, he's dishonest. He lied to me. He said he wouldn't do that again. He betrayed my trust. I trusted him. We had a long talk. I started to trust him again. And then what did he do? He turned around and did the same thing, went worse. Not realizing these are, because the person is relatively unconscious, different sub-personality take that person over, which are just mental patterns, mental emotional patterns. They could be called sub-personalities. They take over that person, and then there's somebody else there virtually. And so it's not, if you draw certain conclusions that this person now can never be trusted again, no, that wasn't the same person. It's several different people there. If you draw some conclusion and even draw some universal conclusion, then you yourself become deluded. If you say, you see, now I know people can't be trusted. They do lie all the time, don't they? So suddenly the one sub-personality becomes everybody. And well, it does apply to the majority of people still. You need to remember the majority of people are often completely possessed by mentally emotional forms of conditioning. And sometimes certain forms of conditioning arise very strongly and take over that person. And then that subsides. There's a little bit of, so perhaps occasionally a little bit of awareness there before the next wave of conditioning comes and takes that person over. Once you see that, it's easier also to be with people because whatever behavior a person manifests towards you is the same as whatever the present moment presents. It cannot be otherwise. At this present moment, nobody can act beyond their state of consciousness at this moment. But you should be more conscious. More conscious? What are you talking about? You talk about consciousness. Let me tell you what you did. Start arguing with an ego. You can never win. So, dealing with your mind, life is difficult, yes. People are difficult, yes. Situations are often difficult, yes. But they are much less difficult if your mind does not amplify the problems that you encounter and the people that you encounter in your life. That already takes away a huge burden, so that your mind no longer complains and has those patterns that deny what is and that weaves huge stories around people and events, and about the past and about the future, the worry, the regret, the anxiety. These are all mental events that do not have to be part of the difficulty of life.
Rule number 7 is know yourself.
The hardest knowledge, obviously, is self-knowledge. That's why the ancient Greeks, like Plato, Socrates, the main one, said his main dictum is know thyself. Know thyself. That's the most important thing in life, Socrates said. By the way, he lived about the same time as the Buddha. He said the most important thing is know thyself. And that was inscribed at the Temple of Delphi in ancient Greece. Know thyself. Another strange inscription, and that takes us now to where we are going. On the same temple inscribed was saying that for a long time people couldn't interpret. They thought something was missing. The other words on the temple was, so on the other side of the temple, you are in Greek. You are. And so the archaeologists looked into, there's something missing here. You are, when they tried to, is there another word that you are? But there was no other word. You are. Know thyself. You are. Then at some point somebody understood what it probably meant. It was pointing to a deeper dimension of who you are. But the real knowing yourself is not just knowing the personality. That's only one level. It's not the deepest level of knowing yourself. It's important too to know all the stuff that runs you, that operates in you as a conditioning of your mind. This kind of thing people go to a psychoanalyst for. They want to know thyself. What the psychoanalyst or psychiatrist can do for you is he can show you all kinds of things from your past. And if you go to a psychoanalyst, you can go for many years. Some people go for 20 years, 20, 30 years to a psychoanalyst, once or twice a week. Okay, then because the story goes on and discover more and more intricate things about your childhood. And then what happened, and how did you feel about them? And then what did your mother say? And then up to a point it's helpful, but then it goes on. And you get trapped in that level. And it becomes more and more complex. One level of knowing yourself is knowing how your ego operates, being able to witness it. For example, as I mentioned, in an argument, you become emotional and you witness it. Oh, so another faculty is there behind the conditioned mind that can observe what you're doing and say, oh, you're becoming very angry about nothing. So maybe you're shouting, but in the back there's something that has arisen. It's an awareness. It says you're shouting about nothing. You're witnessing what the ego is doing. This means that at the beginning of the end of the ego, the witnessing faculty is the awareness. You are. So if you translate it into you, you'd have to say, I am. Okay. I am. And what am I? And so let's investigate now this level of deep deeper identity. I call it the deep I as opposed to the surface I. The deep I, to find that which is underneath the person. And in order to find that, the stream of thinking that sustains that personal sense of self needs momentarily come to a cessation. And that's why I started this evening with observing your breath, because that can bring about a brief sensation in the stream of thinking. And in that moment, awareness remains, consciousness remains, but it doesn't become thought. And this is a very strange thing to realize from the egoic point of view. So what, says the ego? It doesn't realize that is of extraordinary importance to find that, to discover that dimension that is deeper than the egoic self, that is a dimension of consciousness before it becomes thought. So the most vital realization for you is to realize that there are spaces in your mind that you just need to discover, or really ultimately only one space. You discover that there is a space in you where you can be conscious without needing to think, but you're very alert, you're completely here. Another word for it, some words can be helpful as pointers. Another word for it is stillness. You discover a dimension of stillness within you. Stillness means consciousness without the movement of thought. Wow. And you can still perceive everything. In fact, you perceive it more acutely, more deeply, when you are not labeling mentally thought, when you are not labeling mentally what you're perceiving. You can look around, flower, room, sky, everything is there. You know what you're looking at without calling it anything, without concept. And you haven't gone to sleep, because normally humans becoming free of thinking, the only way they can do that when they haven't awakened, they have to go to sleep, or they have to take some kind of drug that slows down your mind. Or there may be a place for drugs in certain cases, sacred, so on. Don't need to go there, it takes too long. But the discovery that stillness, which is unconditioned consciousness, which is deeper than the person, is always there, but it's covered up by the noise of the mind. And you are completely identified with this surface movement. So you can't find the deeper self, where there is enormous peace and a deep sense of aliveness that gives you everything that you had been looking for as a surface egoic entity in this realm of this physical realm, or this even psychological realm. You were looking for that, never finding this ultimate sense of being home, having arrived. You feeling at home in the universe, rather than being alienated. Alienation is a very common mental illness for millions of humans, especially modern day humans. So the most important discovery for you is discover there's something deeper in you than you, the person. They're not separate in the same way that the ripple on the surface of the ocean is not separate from the ocean.
Rule number 8 is cultivate awareness.
Free will ultimately does not come in until there's some awareness in you. That's where free will comes from. Until you have some awareness, you are run by the conditioning of your mind, and so you have no choice. The element of choice comes in when you become aware, for example, of the thoughts that go through your head, and you might realize suddenly, and for some people that's the first time they awaken spiritually, when they realize that for years they've had a voice in their head talking to them, which could be a monologue, it could be a dialogue. You could have a conversation with yourself. You can beat yourself up and say, why you're no good enough, aren't you? And then the other part of yourself says, well, I'm doing my best. I can't do it. I'm not good enough. The voice in the head. For some people, the spiritual awakening comes when they become aware that there's a voice in their head, and there's the awareness.
Right.
At the moment there's the awareness, you might even be able to choose to let go of a certain thought, a repetitive thought that you don't need anymore, that you don't want anymore, and then you surrender it, or you breathe it out. You don't need it. You reckon an emotion, sometimes people are in the grip of strong emotions, but if there's a little bit of awareness there, if let's say it's anger, anger arises, but in the background you're aware that there's emotion of anger. So there's a small element of choices come in. Do you want to then attack this person? If there's awareness, you can observe the anger, but may no longer need to act it out. I'm not talking about suppressing, but recognizing. The more awareness you have, or presence, the more choice there's in your life. And then it's only then that you actually become truly intelligent, because this awareness is not an IQ thing. I've met highly intelligent people with 1 or 2 or 3 PhDs, academics, others, who are completely unaware, still just completely in their minds. And people who, in their personal lives, often very dysfunctional personal lives. So it's not to be equated with intelligence, this awareness.
Rule number 9 is stop worrying.
This is all important. Give me your fullest attention. This really matters. It may matter, but as I put it, although things matter relatively, they may be relatively important. Whether or not you miss your plane, whether you find that great job or you lose that great job, or whatever happens, it's all relatively important. But only one thing is of absolute importance, and that is your connectedness with being, so that that dimension is with you as you in your daily life. That's the challenge. A few things will be helpful in this. One is letting go of the unconscious assumption that there should be no problems and difficulties, and if they are, that they are undesirable obstacles that really shouldn't be there in the form of events or people or situations. But if you look back on your life, when I look back on my life, it's always been challenging. There are brief moments when it's not challenging, and that's great. But you know very well that life won't leave you alone. It'll challenge you one way or another.
And rule number 10, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is stop pleasing everyone.
Your happiness or fulfillment does not depend on any other human's acceptance of who you are. That would be a deluded thought. If you think you can only be happy if these people accept and understand you. Some people have that with their parents. So they say, my dad, my father, they don't understand me at all. It's terrible, terrible. I'm trying to explain what I had. Of course, they cannot understand you. It's beyond their comprehension. If you have awakened spiritually and they haven't, so compassionately accept that they cannot understand you. Instead of trying to explain yourself to them, just be there in a loving way with them when you meet for Christmas or Thanksgiving and you hear all the judgments coming at you from them. You should have, why don't you? Look where it's taken you. Look at your sister, she married a millionaire and you are into that weird kind of meditation stuff that's not getting you anywhere. Whatever judgments come, say, okay, I know that this is what you think and feel, and I think and feel differently, that's all. So you don't not need to justify or accepting people's limitations and suddenly realizing whether or not your father, your mother, your sister, your brother, or anybody else close to you accepts you for who you are is really not. You become free of the need to be accepted, but you can nevertheless have a deeper connection, keep that deeper connection and connectedness with them. I often say yes to the present moment, or I say, make the present moment your friend, not your enemy. So to say yes to the present moment is a powerful teaching, but it can be misunderstood and has been misunderstood sometimes, and it needs to be explained what that actually means. It means, oh, by the way, there's a funny movie made some years ago with Jim Carrey. It's called The Yes Man, and this is a person in the movie, the character he plays, he works at a bank, I think, in the mortgage department, and he's very bitter, and he likes to say no to people who apply for mortgages. No, you can't have it, he loves saying, and he's very negative about everything now. His life is uneventful, boring, everything is negative. Then he goes to a new age. A friend invites him to a strange new age event with a new age teacher, and the teacher says, you have to say yes to everything, say yes to everything. And he kind of becomes convinced that, well, I might as well try that, I've got nothing to lose. And from then on, whatever people ask him, every mortgage he approves. And whatever people ask him, can you lend me money? Sure, yes. Can you do this? Yes, yes, yes. And then his life becomes very interesting, but also very chaotic. He gets into most chaotic situations that he kind of all gets out of hand. And in the end, he kind of seems to realize that this wasn't quite working. That is not the true meaning. So to say yes to the present moment does not mean that you accept everything that people ask of you. In some cases, you have to use the now, the no, but in the not in an angry way that denies the present moment. I call that a high quality no. So let's say in your case, can you look after my children? Or because I need you're so good with children. She'll flatter you.
Wir übernehmen den kompletten Prozess für dich, wenn du ein Buch erstellen möchtest. Von der Erstellung des Buches über die Vermarktung des Buches.
As a human being, you must see how this life can blossom into its fullest. If it blossoms to its fullest, somebody may become rich with money, somebody may become intelligent, somebody may become knowledgeable, somebody may become loving, somebody may become an artist, somebody may just wander. But a fully blossomed human being is a joy to see, no matter what the hell they're doing or what they're not doing. Whichever way, they're an asset to whole humanity. If you are very clear that what you're doing is significant for every life around you, other people's opinion means nothing.
There are certain simple ways. There is some simple technology with which you can keep your mind in a certain condition of clarity, where it simply sees that you learn to keep your mind like a mirror. It simply shows you what is there. It doesn't distort.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I watch these videos every day because I need them for motivation. Being around successful entrepreneurs every morning helps me believe that I can do great things too. It's like your morning coffee, but for your goals, kickstarting your day with a blast of positivity. So here is a challenge for you. Try watching one video every morning for the next 30 days. And let's find out together if they help you do great things too. If you're in, leave a hashtag believe in the comments below so I could...
Thought of a bicycle. Hello? Only because you already have mobility, you thought about enhanced mobility. That evolved into many things. Only because we can speak. We came up with a microphone and a telephone. If we had no such thing as speech, would we have thought of a microphone and a telephone? Because we can see, we have microscopes and telescopes. Every machine and every gadget we create is only enhancement of existing human faculty. We can see this far, but we want to see that far. We can speak this far, now we want to speak that far. We can hear this far, now we want to hear from somewhere else. Everything. There is no other way for a human brain or human intelligence to function. We will only think of how to enhance this. The purpose of enhancement is essentially a longing to enhance the quality, the content, and the profoundness of our life.
Wherever your desire is, that's where your mind will be. If you desire something intensely, your mind will be always there. Right now, you desire the cup, wrong place to be. You desire a goal. That's what you should desire when you're on the field, isn't it? Now you can desire the cup. But once you're on the field, you just desire the goal and goal and goal, nothing else. Once your desire is strong, your body and mind naturally moves in that direction, isn't it? Whatever you desire, that's where you go. If your desire falls off, then you can't keep the mind on it. You just have to develop the itcha in you. The only itcha is to score the goal. Then you don't have to worry about mental focus. That's where the mind will be. Can somebody take your mind off what you desire? Can somebody take your mind off what you desire? What you desire is where your mind will naturally go, isn't it? So how does yoga help in this? See, what are the simple parameters with which the body and mind is functioning? This is a complex machinery. This is the most sophisticated machine in this planet is human body and mind, isn't it? Everything that we have created has come out of this mind. So this mind is a complex machinery, very complex. So if you do anything wrong, it will create many distractions within itself. There are certain simple ways. There is some simple technology with which you can keep your mind in a certain condition of clarity, where it simply sees that you learn to keep your mind like a mirror. It simply shows you what is there. It doesn't distort. The moment your mind gets identified with many things, now you're playing as an Indian hockey player. Now you get all distorted because now you're reading the whole history, the glory of Indian hockey, the depths of Indian hockey, everything will flow in your mind. Now you will not play the game. You will not see the game the way it is, first of all. Learning to keep the mind like a mirror, where it simply shows you what is there in front of you, without any distortion. Once there is no distortion, you will walk to the best of your ability, isn't it? Now you're walking on this floor. There is no distortion in your vision. You can see everything clearly. To the best of your ability you will go, isn't it? In your very vision, if there is distortion, you will unnecessarily stumble all over the place. So whatever talent you have, whatever capability you have, if it has to find full expression, your mind doesn't come in between and distort anything. It just shows you everything the way it is. So the whole yogic system is focused on this for a spiritual purpose, which can also be used for the sport, that it shows you everything just the way it is, not some other way, not the way you think it is.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet.
To use this body and use this mind only when you are able to not treat it as myself. These are powerful instruments in your life. These instruments can be employed the way you want it, only when you have an outside access to it. Right now, you are a phenomenal computer, but you don't know where the keyboard is. When you can't think, you scratch this spot, that's not where it is. Do you see people? When they cannot think, they're thinking hard, they scratch here. It doesn't work like that. There are proper steps that one can take. It could be offered here if everybody is willing for that. This is another concept which has made its rounds in the world, that something else should motivate you to do what you're doing. If what you're doing is significant enough, you don't need any other thing to motivate you. What you're doing is truly significant to life. Why do you need another motivation to make that happen? If you really understand and experience that what you are doing is truly important for every life around you, you don't need a motivation, life just goes on. See, does your heartbeat need a motivation to keep it going? I'm asking you. All the life processes is not asking for any motivation, isn't it? Monsoon's coming, any motivation? No, it's coming year after year, because the natural process is going on. Simply like that, in you and me, life is on. What I'm telling you is, if you're doing something which is aligned with the fundamental life process of who you are, this can find a million expressions, it need not be just spiritual teaching. It can find a million expressions that what you're doing is aligned with your fundamental life process, then you will not need anything to motivate you. Simply, as a part of life, it will just happen. How much you do simply depends on how much time you invested on upgrading yourself. The problem with the world right now is, people are always trying to upgrade their activity. If you upgrade your activity without upgrading yourself, you are bound to break up somewhere. It's like, you went on a Formula 1 track because you want to be on a fast track and you went with your Maruti 800. Suppose you hit the right kind of speed, all the four wheels will go in four different directions. It won't hold up. If you want to be on that kind of speed and that kind of track, you must repair the machine. Upgradation of this one is important. If you upgrade yourself, activity will simply happen. Many people around me, many times think I'm superhuman because of that activity that I perform. This is not about being superhuman. If you explore the possibilities of being human, if you explore the possibilities of the immensity of being human, you will realize you don't have to be a superhuman. Being human itself is super. So you will not need any external drive or some other inspiration. The very process of life will do it. If you're stupid, you can do whatever you want. You need to understand, trust does not mean somebody has to behave the way you expect them to behave. Trust means whatever they do, It's all right with you if you come to such a state. Otherwise, don't use such a big word as trust. Trust means they must do what you expect them to do.
Die letzten globalen Revolverhelden einer Vergangenheit.
Trust should empower people. Trust should not limit people, isn't it? So your idea of trust is to hold them in the way you want them to be. So you trust, betrayal, this, that works. Don't get into all this nonsense. Just use your sense. See, this is the biggest mistake they have made. They always told you to be good. Once you're good, you have all these expectations from everybody else. See, first of all, they told you God is good, God is compassion, God is love, God is so many things. Leave what other people have told you. Let's say you know nothing of this nonsense from anybody. You paid attention to creation. You looked at a flower carefully. One thing you can see is, whatever created this is of tremendous intelligence, isn't it? Yes or no? Not necessarily something as pleasant as a flower. You pay an attention to an ant that's crawling around. The way it's made, incredible intelligence or no? Yes or no? But nobody told you God is intelligence. If they had told you God is there are sounds of pain. There is some machine buzzing all the time. It's like, if I travel here for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, it becomes like, boom, something is going on. In any building you sit, something is going on. When I go back to ashram in India, if I sit there, it's still like that, absolutely still. The impact that emotions, ideas and prejudices, isn't it? That's not you. So what is you has not come into experience. So how to motivate you? When you're not yet, how to get you going? You're not yet. Right now all that is there is a bundle of thoughts, a cloud of thoughts and emotions and all kinds of stuff, isn't it? So that's why the sadhana. You must come and do some sadhana. Initially somebody will motivate you. See, when your car doesn't start, somebody has to push, okay? Once it gets going, after that we don't have to push it all the way. Then it'll go. So initially nothing wrong using a little bit of a push. Everybody needs a push. There are very few people who can propel themselves from step one. Most others need push, often on a little kick here and there. People think I have knowledge. No, my head is empty. That's why to make it look little substantial, I have a turban. It's totally empty always. But I have clarity. Clarity means what? You see things the way they are. Knowledge means what? You have fixed information about everything. If things have changed, you will not see it the way it is. That's as good as being blind. See, people think owls are blind. It's not true. Their vision is far more sensitive than yours. But because of sunlight, they're blinded because it's too much. When light goes down, he sees very clearly. Not because he's blind, because his eyes are super sensitive. So, it's important that you bring clarity to your life, not knowledge, because knowledge is conclusions that you gather. Knowledge is okay when you're trying to do something physical, material in the world, but not with life. Is it true? What you thought was absolute at the age of 12, today is not true. Yes or no? Are you sure that whatever you think is this is it right now, will be this is it in another 3 years' time?
Of course not.
You know that. So you know you're wrong. Yes or no?
Yes.
So you know anyway you're wrong. So why assert the wrong things? Well, right now we are wrong, at least let's manage with little more conscious. If you know you're wrong, you will walk carefully, isn't it? Hello? But you think you're absolutely correct, then you will do stupid things and you blunder around the world. If you know you're not seeing properly, will you walk carefully or no? If I ask you to walk through a dark room, suppose we turn off all the lights and close it down, everything, pitch dark, if I ask you to walk, suddenly will you become super alert and conscious as to how you walk? But when the lights are on, you're just going unconsciously, bumping into everybody. So if you learn to walk every moment, like there are no lights and you're looking at everything absolutely carefully, then what you see clearly, you go through it. What you don't see clearly, you hesitate. Some places you take a little bit of chance. But if you are just confident, you will blunder through life. We don't know where you will get in and what you will get trapped into. Most people are trapped into their professions, their family situations, their social situations in such a way, they all became like yes, already I'm seeing, not just older people, youth have become like this. What will happen to me at the end of my life? What will happen to me at the end of my life? I'm already revealed the secret, you will die. But Sadhguru, if this happens, what to do? If that happens, what to do? All those things will happen. It's not that everything will happen in your life the way you like it. Things will happen in the way you don't like it. It once happened. Shankaran Pillai got fired from his job simply because he asked a question, smoking or not non-smoking. How can you get fired for asking such a simple question? Smoking or non-smoking, he asked, and he got fired. Because what he was supposed to ask was cremation or burial. So, many times what you do, thinking I'm right, may be irrelevant to the situation in which you exist. So the most important aspect of your life is you're relevant, not right. You're just relevant. To the existing situation, you're relevant. I am right, I am right, I am right. This is confidence. You being right, nobody cares. All the idiots who think they're right, nobody wants to listen to them, nobody wants to be around them, isn't it? People who always think, I'm right, you want to be around them? No, the important thing is you're relevant to the situation in which you exist. If you have to bring relevance into your life, you must extinguish your confidence and bring clarity. Pain is not a concept. If you don't know that it's not a concept, I can cause some pain to you, you will know it's not a concept. It's a living reality when you get it. Hello?
Can pain be controlled by the mind?
See, pain is of the body. See, suppose this water is hardly 9 inches deep, all right, 9–10 inches deep. But you want to dive from the top of the tree. If there was no pain, you would have done it. Yes? If it breaks your head and still there is no pain, a whole lot of people would have done it. Right now, the only thing which is making you behave sensibly, at least in terms of your survival, is pain. Without pain, most people would not know how to survive either. So pain is a very good thing. It manages you.
Even emotional pain?
That you cause. Because you want to be a tragic hero.
Me? No.
See, there is only physical pain as existentially true. Pain that you have in your mind and in your emotion is caused by you. You like to poke yourself. Why? Because you're a vain life. You have not found any other way to feel profound. Pain makes you feel profound. You're from Mumbai, cinema world, I'm saying. Without pain, no profoundness, isn't it?
No artistry.
People think they're profound because they're in pain. No, you're misunderstanding pain for profoundness. It's a serious mistake. If it comes in loads, then you will know what it is, all right? It'll destroy you. It'll mutilate life. Pain. Yes or no? Human beings have been destroyed, not necessarily by a sword or a gun. They just break themselves down into pieces because of their own emotions and thoughts. More people are mutilating themselves by themselves, using the sharpness of their own mind, rather than by somebody's sword or gun, isn't it so? So why is this so? Because you have misunderstood a few fundamental things. You do not know what is real and what is not. What is existentially true, what is physiologically true, what is psychologically true. You have lost, the boundaries of this. Once you lose this, whatever you do, it'll hurt you. Just tell me one thing people are not suffering. Tell me one thing. Well, if they are poor, they suffer their poverty. You make them rich, they suffer the taxes. Yes. If they're not educated, they suffer that. Put them to school, they suffer that. They're not married, they suffer that. Get them married, oh. Don't tell me. No children, they suffer that. Give them children, daily suffering. Yes. So it looks like you're suffering every aspect of life. So we'll offer you death. Oh, they'll suffer that. So suffering is not because of life situations. Suffering is because you do not know how to manage yourself. You do not know how to manage your own mind, your emotion, your energy, your…
So schick sind nur Dr. Rick und Dr. Nick.
Anzug ist so eng, ne? Du kriegst die Arme nicht.
Als schön
your very life. You do not know how to manage. Then everything becomes suffering. Physical pain is a different thing. Physical pain is caused